play Valerie Plame's boss at the CIA, so I have the dubious distinction of letting her go when the crap hits the fan.
So how did that feel? Knowing this story, is that different for you than playing?
It is very different. I mean, you feel you're honoring real heroes. You're honoring real human beings, and you're representing real life. So there's a different sort of responsibility that comes with that, I think. In terms of veracity and integrity of the story that you're telling, and you don't have the license that you have with a fictional character. So you want to do justice to the truth of the circumstance and the dynamic of the people.
And people might have that opinion about them already, but since working on this, why are they heroes? Why are they heroes?
Well, I think holding on to your personal integrity in the face of sort of institutional persuasion is such a hard thing to do in our culture. To really stick to your own compass in the face of tremendous adversity and a pressure to conform and to sort of play along, when actually it can cost you personally. But when your ideas and your sense of truth and decency and democracy outweigh your own personal agenda, I think that's pretty heroic.
And it feels like it happened yesterday, but the years have gone by since the story. What makes it relevant?
I think it's a perpetually relevant theme that showed up in this story a few years back, but it's no less relevant today. In fact, maybe it's even more relevant today than it was in the immediate aftermath. We have some chance to understand it, digest it, get some perspective, really understand what was going on. And the more you understand, the more sort of horrific it is. I think the truth of this story is terrible. So, all right, sure.
Good. How are you? I'm fine, thank you. I'm assuming you're working with my hat. Good job portraying me or not. I have a better idea of whether Naomi does a good job portraying Valerie, because I see Valerie every day, and Naomi does. And I think she captures the essence. They created this movie, when you look at it, it's all about the good. It's not all about love.
So, Doug, it feels like this story wrote yesterday. It's been a few years now. Tell me what makes this relevant and why you want to tell
What is that going to be?
It's a story about abuse of power by the White House, which is something that unfortunately keeps repeating in this country. And also, the characters at the heart of the story finally decided to come forward and go public. This is a story about the most secret kind of CIA officer, Nock. Those people never come out of the shadows, ever. And Valerie Plame finally made the decision to allow somebody to tell her story. And we're getting a glimpse inside the CIA that no one has ever been able to bring to the screen before.
I mean, you compared a lot to
Begin to understand what
other movies, maybe there's your dad's pieces from. Tell me what it was like this story and still alive.
No, I mean, the thing is, I really, I have a strong spy background creating the Bourne Identity franchise and doing the Covert Affairs TV series. I mean, I live a lot in the world of espionage, but getting to actually work with a real-life spy and a really hardcore, high-level spy, the kind of person that, I wasn't even sure really existed, even though I put those kinds of characters in movies like The Bourne Identity, until I actually met Valerie Plame, and I was like, oh my god, this really does exist. And being able to talk to her and learn about the details of what it's like to balance being a spy with a marriage, what it's like to go home at night with a spy. How does a marriage work when you can't tell your husband where you're going and when you'll be back? And he just needs to know whether or not they need a nanny the next day, whether they need childcare. And Valerie Plame was traveling the globe combating the proliferation of nuclear weapons. She was sabotaging the weapons program in some of the scariest places on this planet. And to actually meet the bird section right there. It's not. This sounds like a fictitious character, but she's standing 2 feet away from me here. So it really was a huge honor to be trusted to tell her story.
So what are we going to get that we didn't get in the news? And I'm telling you that story. No.
I'm not going to criticize the news, but they never got the story. I'm not going to criticize them because, penetrating the CIA is probably the hardest thing I've ever done in my career. And I've done some pretty ambitious movies. I've shot in some very dangerous and tricky places. Penetrating the CIA to tell a story about a knock, like the James Bonds of the CIA, by far the hardest thing I've ever done, and it was only doable because Valerie Plame decided that Hollywood, rather than the media, was the appropriate place to tell this story. She trusted me, she trusted us. Huge honor, huge responsibility.
It's very funny seeing them next to each other. I don't know if it's some, team together. They do look like sisters.
No, Naomi Watts and Valerie Plame have become almost like sisters because they have spent so much time together. The way Sean Penn and Joe Wilson spent so much time together that, basically each day Sean Penn would become more and more like Joe Wilson. It was almost like watching a horror film where he's slowly sucking up the identity of Joe Wilson, and you're like, one day he could probably just knock off Joe Wilson and nobody even realize it. He just beat Joe Wilson. I mean, that's how amazing Sean Penn, seeing his process, and he really is the greatest working actor right now, besides Naomi Watts, who was unbelievable. I mean, just people now are like, oh, they feel like sisters. They didn't start the movie like that. That's Naomi Watts evolving into Valerie Plame.
So what do you feel is the most important thing to know about that couple as a couple?
The Wilsons are the most fascinating couple I've ever brought to the screen. The fact that it happens to be real is, I guess in real life sometimes can come up with things that a Hollywood screenwriter's imagination never could. So I think that people will be inspired by this husband and wife who risked everything to fight for the right to speak out against your government without the fear of reprisal. They're true American heroes, and the right to speak freely without fear of reprisal from your government is one of the freedoms I take most seriously as an American. It's one of the things I'm most proud of as an American. And so this is a real-life hero standing right next to me, Joe Wilson.
Really weird. In my view, having written the articles, having suffered through all this, I think what is undeniable is the Bush administration created this for themselves. They essentially took a 3-day stretch.
Hopefully that's good together. I'm not held to the same
Remind people of what the real story was.
And the real story was I and my producers made a decision as to what we thought might compromise national security and what we thought was important for the world to know. But having access to Valerie Plame, being able to pick up the phone and call Valerie and ask her technical question about spyware was an incredible resource.
You have to talk to her wife.
I can only imagine what I could have done with my identity had I known Valerie Plame back then.
I don't see myself on the outside.
She helped me on my TV series Covered Affairs.
We'll have to ask her about whether Sean did a good job representing me.
I have not. I would be eager to debate it, to defend it, to defend the facts contained, to put that challenge out there. No, I'm putting it out every time I do an interview. That we spent years researching the facts in this movie. It's not an Oliver Stone treatment where the truth is able to be manipulated, because at the end of the day,
I was saying before, it's really
this is a story about
not a
the truth. It's a story about the President of the United States lying to the American people. So the last thing I was going to do as a filmmaker was be guilty of the thing I was accusing the President of the United States of.
Right. And the fact that everything that they went through, it just, makes you want to give the story and honor it.
Is the most prominent figure from the Bush administration in my movie, because we had the most information about his actions. At the end of the day, there may have been people who did worse things, but we only knew for a fact what Scooter Libby did. So, because he's such a prominent character in the movie,
takes it out of the news, and then
I would love the opportunity,
hopefully that's
even knowing what an effective lawyer he is. He is a brilliant, I have portrayed him as a brilliant strategist.
Understand how,
because I believe that to be the truth.
A marriage
knowing that, and knowing that I'm just a filmmaker, I would still take
each other. Do you have anything against the government and just media, everything?
No, I think he thought he was doing what was right. But I think that
definitely.
What he did to Valerie Plame,
it was scary as well, because
is so horrible.
Such an impressive.
What he did to her on a personal level,
it's
what he did to that family,
the world's
and what he did to the national security of the United States of America,
come together,
outing a high level
I had a lot to learn.
counter-proliferation CIA officer
and then
who was tasked
it helps having
with combating the Iranian and North Korea nuclear
saying no, this is how it works, and no, that wouldn't happen, and let's.
How do you feel sorry for that guy?
Figure this and say that.
And I think Doug was very concerned
Anything I miss about the Bush administration?
making this story, unlike some of the work he's done previously, very much more realistic. Everything down to the files, to the badges, and everything. Thank you.
People always try to find somebody else they can blame rather than themselves. So.
Valerie Plame.
Hi, ask your questions.
Yeah, well, I think the news was saturated with the disinformation campaign run by the Republicans and their allies in the right-wing echo chamber. So what we hope to achieve with the movie, what our interests were as we went into the movie project, was to ensure that the story got told correctly and that, in fact, the facts got laid out so people could judge for themselves. Not disinformation, not this crap about Valerie being glorified secretary, not this crap about nepotism, but the actual story be told. And then people can judge for themselves whether Karl Rove is a lying son of a bitch or not.
Was it comforting at all knowing that, Sean Penn, he's a serious actor that takes on his part very seriously and knows about what's going on?
Yeah, well, obviously it's an honor to have, and humbling to have somebody who is at the top of his profession playing me in a movie, something I never anticipated as I was growing up or even as an adult. And perhaps not anything that Sean Penn would ever want to undertake again, given the opportunity. But I think the important thing about all of this is that the story is told in such a way that it reflects what actually happened, not how people fantasize about they would have liked what happened or what didn't happen.
And as far as there's spy thriller movies that try
You've seen the rest, now you get a chance to see the best. You get to see the real story.
It's not a documentary, but it is a very accurate portrayal of what happened. And the CIA officer, the female, is portrayed in a much more realistic fashion. It's not a cartoon character. It's not, reliant on guns and physicality to get done whatever's to sexually documented and so forth. And you do that because riding in high heels.
It feels like it just happened, but years have gone by.
How was it? First of all, who's your coordinator of this?
Well, I think the lesson is timeless. It's a lesson of the abuse of power. And it just so happens the political context is a Bush administration, but it could just as easily be some other administration. And the lesson in this is that if you are not willing to stand up and defend yourself and hold your government to account for what it says and does in your name, then you can assume that that government is going to abuse its power and engage in private political, certain officials will use their position to engage in private political vendettas. And I think that's very clear in this story.
And how was Doug feeling that he wants to see justice to personal?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think he was very concerned about that. I mean, he comes from a line of people who really care, and his father, as he will tell you, but he wanted to make sure he wanted to get the essence of the story right and talk about what happens when, both on a personal level and political, when you change the pieces around. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
At least
Step down this way. Let's step.
And look this way. Okay, that's fine. And this camera here. Right next to him here. Guys, one look to the right.
There we go. Excuse me. Never took advantage of my expertise. I don't watch Fox.
I'm Arthur Liman, professor of law at Yale Law School. Hi, my name is Judith Resnick. I'm the Arthur Liman, professor of law at Yale Law School. I'm just the chair endowed in honor of Doug's father, which runs public interest programs doing forms of work that are very deeply related to the movie, and I play the professor in the movie.
So tell me about that. Was it a stretch or was it?
Well, actually, I know how to act like a professor. I do that a fair amount.
And what makes this an important movie? To be told this way, not just in the news, but this way.
Well, it's very important. Both Valerie Plame and Joe Wilson have written books. This enables everyone to understand in a way that is immediate and powerful how badly distorted some information that was provided to us had been, and gets to set records straight. As a consumer of the news myself, when the stories were early on, I had the vague impression of the Naomi Watts character, Valerie Plame, as a person working in the office of the CIA. This movie is startlingly clear that she was an important member of our public service working to keep us all safe, and that by disclosing her name, we all became less safe, and furthermore, the people she was working with became much less safe. And so, in addition to the enormous misbehavior and the failure to use the information that the CIA had,
I think she's under somebody else's control.
Misbehavior of doing harm
They should come over
by
here.
trying to retaliate against people who were speaking the truth. And I take it also trying to chill other people who are looking for public servants like Wilson and Plame to come forth and help us understand the information we need to know. And for filmmakers like Doug to help us see these stories with the fast-paced and engaging narrative. Most of the film one can read from dozens of different sources. So the screenwriters have done an amazing job of compiling tremendous amount of information, which any of us who want to go read a lot of different books and materials can then find the bits and pieces and say, oh, that's in the movie too. Very true to life. True to a life we're should be very worried about, and of course, as all of us are looking to the future, we have to think about how structurally law, institutions, and the press can do better.